Hi, this is Nirnitha. We are here at Bengaluru Tech Summit. We have with us Mr. Kiran, who is from SkyServe team. Hi, Kiran. How are
Hello,
you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good, Kiran. Thanks for asking. Can you tell us more about SkyServe?
Yeah, sure. So at SkyServe, what we are actually trying to do is enable satellite operators and the end users who actually use the satellite data to run their models on board satellite, which will enable them to access the satellite data in analytics or insights in near real time. So if I have to explain why we are trying to do this, if you take a conventional method of procuring satellite data, what happens is either you have to go to a data integrator who provide you satellite data or the satellite operator, and you request him for the data and for certain resolution and for certain frequency of satellite data. So he goes back and he does the feasibility test and gets back to you saying that this is the cost and this is the time I can give you satellite data. There are a lot of forth and back and a lot of time goes in this particular process. And also what happens is, let's assume that you want to look for a particular area of interest of your choice, which is like 5 square kilometers, and but our operator says like I want to look into I can only give you data of 100 square kilometer. So there are a lot of challenges in terms of procuring satellite data, whether it is latency or cost or reliability. So what we are trying to do is we are working with a satellite operator where we are enabling them to become more smarter and enable themselves to provide satellite data with onboard satellite data processing as a solution. So end users can, whatever the models they have, let's say it can be a wildfire detection, it can be a national security related use case, it can be a climate related use case, where they can deploy the particular models on the satellites through our solution and run this, and as and when the data being captured, it can be processed there and just insights or analytics can be downlinked to the end users. So if you see here, so we have different use cases like fire detection, we have use case for mining, urban planning and maritime use cases where end users can actually look into different historical as well as future data once they task for a new data. So they can directly assign the satellite to respective area of interest to be captured and the data to be processed, so that they can only get insights and analytics at their convenience. So that's what we are doing.
That's very interesting. We see a lot of students coming in, and space is a very interesting subject.
Yes.
How interested were students to see your stall?
Yeah, so most of the students were actually, when we started interacting, initially they couldn't get the idea of what we are doing. They were saying that is it like Google Map, is that what your guys are trying to do, how does it work, where will my model will be deployed, etc., etc. But when I told them we are moving from on-ground processing to in-space processing, where you can, as an end user, deploy models in space, they were actually very surprised and very curious to learn more. So this was more of like for them moving from Android mobile from Nokia headset, where you are moving to application which are running in space and you can access the data directly from there, and you don't have to go through conventional way of procuring it and processing it. Yeah.
Since you give a lot of data, like what are the rules and regulations you follow?
So it actually depends use case to use case. So for example, if we are working on any open use case, for example, let's say wildfire detection, where we don't have that much of security concerns or other regulations, but we can provide it with an open API. If they don't want to use our platform, we can provide an API which can be integrated in that platform and they can access the data. And we always comply with whatever the regulations and terms and conditions, and also in terms of security, because whatever the models and algorithms they have, these will be running on board satellite with a network of operator that we are working with. We make sure that they are secure and easily accessible to them as well.
What do you think takes in to build a startup like this?
So one thing I think it's definitely you should be creative enough or open-minded enough to identify what problems can be solved. So you usually see, instead of completely coming up with something new, for example, we are not building our own satellites. We are leveraging the existing satellites which are there in the orbit and which are being launched. We are just trying to solve for the data processing part, where we are playing a software play here. So without building our own satellite, we are leveraging existing satellite and processing data and downlinking it. What I'm trying to say is, you won't have to build something from scratch of your own. You can leverage the existing infrastructure and try to solve for it by identifying the gaps and the like you can think in the first principle way, where you can go back to existing system, break it down, look where all you can fill the gaps and how you can solve for that particular problem, and come with your own solution and idea, and then create a use case or a business case. Go to customers or individuals, talk to them, propose them your solution, whether it is a private or whether it is a government company. Understand what they are looking for. Is it something that you are solving for them? If they say yes, this is something that I would like to be paying for, no, this is not something I am looking for, the problem is something else. So you do that frequent iterations on your ideas. Once you come up with the idea, talk to users, take that feedback, come implement it, do the validation again, and slowly build your idea and the business, and then scale it to a bigger level.
I find your idea very interesting.
Yeah.
I really wish that it sustains. But on contrast, there's a notion where people say startups doesn't sustain for more than 5 years.
Okay.
So what's your take on that?
So it's there are two approaches here. One is, yes, like most of the startups definitely may not survive or may not be there at the end of the couple of years. But in case if the way you are building that particular idea of yours is right, for example, as I said, you don't sit at your building or at your office space, think about an idea, oh, this might be a problem for end users, let me build a solution, let me build a product, and then you go and try to sell it for the customer, and customer says, this is not something I want something else. And by this time you have built the product, you have got the money or funding, whatever it is, and now the customer completely don't want it. Now you have to pivot to something else, right? Either you pivot or you will die, right? So that's the first approach. The second approach, if you look at companies, if you look in early 80s or 90s, there were no concept of VC funding, right? Companies were built from scratch. You take example of big companies. They actually understood the actual problem that exists in the society, and they solved for it. They took a particular place, they solved for that particular place, they went to another place, they solved for that, they gradually build their customer base and also validate the problem that they are trying to solve. And once they got a customer traction, they went to their families or their relatives or the friends who could fund them. Initially they might have taken some funding from them with their and plus their own saving, but once they built that traction, they went to bigger investors who could trust in their problems, and they invested, and that is how they became big. It took a lot of years and a lot of work as well. So these are two different approaches. It's up to you which one you want to take based on whatever plan you have.
Thank you for your valuable words, valuable insights on startups and space.
Yes.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
To stay informed about the startup ecosystem, subscribe to My Startup TV.